Hello, boys and girls. I'm going on to the second article. This is an article written by Dr. Aliza Bazak. She is a researcher. The article is published in an Orthodox magazine called Tradition. Okay, and it's more of a historical approach, kind of going from one period of Jewish history and halachic evolution to another. So, shaming is the big issue. A modern commentary on medieval rabbinic sanctions, which means we're taking the period of Rabbeinu Tam and the Ramah and the Shulchan Aruch and see how Israeli courts and rabbinic courts have been interpreting it. I hope to be able to finish this article in 3 or 4 videos, and that will be it. And I invite you to start thinking about writing your factum. Now, finally, I want you to concentrate on the Hebrew terms, especially of excommunication, distancing, the distinction, what's considered force and what's considered compelling, strongly suggesting, persuading, etc. Let me get into the text, otherwise I'll never finish. Jewish law suggests various mechanisms of addressing the painful issue of women whose husbands refused to grant them a divorce. In Hebrew, mesoravot, refused, get. Women who are refused a get. A Beit Din, please note that this is one of the questions. A Beit Din has various means at its disposal to pressure a man. So please note that first it's the Beit Din that has to do it. To pressure a man to grant a divorce when he resists doing so. In addition to extreme measures such as imprisonment, which may be imposed only in cases in which a rabbinic court compels a get. And notice that imprisonment is not considered coercion that negates a get. And other legal measures that facilitate the unilateral termination of a marriage. Namely, the rabbis had the power to invalidate. When you get married, you say, Hareat mekudeshet li, Kedat Moshe ve'Yisrael. So the rabbis interpreted that to mean that when you sanctify a woman, when you marry a woman, you do it according to the opinion of the rabbis. Therefore, the rabbis have the power to invalidate the marriage. There are court-imposed economic and social sanctions that restrict a husband's civil rights. Okay, and one of them is going to be Harchakot de Rabbeinu Tam, distancing measures of Rabbeinu Tam, and they are written, if you want to know the source for references, in a book called Sefer Hayashar, Tshuvot 24, that prescribe a husband's excommunication, in Hebrew, nidui, remember that term, nidui, excommunication, and ostracism, which is cherem. Please remember the distinction between the two for refusing to divorce his wife. In this article, I will focus on the contemporary practice of shaming. Remember our case? Social media, as a mode of social pressure and ostracization, and explore whether it can be considered a valid outgrowth of Rabbeinu Tam's regulations. In other words, are Rabbeinu Tam's regulations the precursor, or the current things of social media is a natural outgrowth? Okay, now marriage is a sacred institution based on religious covenant and a contract between a husband and wife. Jewish law differs greatly from Catholic approach. In Catholic approach, if marriage is a divine document, something that God has joined, nobody has the right to take it apart. In other words, Catholicism does not recognize divorce. Instead, it endeavors to provide the parties with practical ways of untying the knot. Judaism. The halachic method for severing a marriage, a unique halachic ceremony. The husband gives a wife a writ of divorce, sefer kritut, a bill of divorce. The Talmud text refers to it as a get. According to the Talmud, the husband must give the get to his wife of his own free will. Otherwise, it's deemed a coerced get and is not valid. A coerced get in Hebrew, get me'useh. However, a Jewish law recognizes various grounds on which a rabbinic court can order a husband to divorce his wife, and the first list is found in the Mishnah. Then there is another list found, and after the Mishnah, there is also a list that is found in the Jerusalem Talmud, in the Talmud Yerushalmi, and in the Poskim, in those who make the halachic decisions. A third group is based on assessment, amtala me'orevet, meaning that the rabbinical court has assessed that the rational and normative basis for a get is legitimate. What are some of these? For example, in the Mishnah, if you say he stinks. What do you mean he stinks? His body doesn't stink. He is working, let's say he is doing leather work, right? He takes dead animals and makes them into skin, and that has all sorts of chemicals, so he smells. Okay, so a bad smell is one. Husband jeopardizes his wife's life by not supporting her financially. So if he's not supporting her, it's also ground for a divorce. Let's see. Infidelity. He's cheating on her. Or even worse, he's just living with somebody else. Okay? So these are arguments for the Beit Din, two arguments for compelling a get. Compelling a get. The Beit Din can say that you have to give her a get based upon your behavior, your profession, etc. Another ground is just a woman would not be willing to continue to live in such a marriage. The marriage could not be rehabilitated, say the rabbis. It can't be saved. And therefore the relationship is considered to be dead, and that gives the rabbis the ability to force him to give her a get. Now, the way this woman, Aliza Bazak, is functioning is she poses questions and answers them. So, what happens when a husband refuses to divorce his wife? How can a Beit Din enable a wife to sever the marital bond when the husband is difficult? If the rabbinical court has ruled that the husband is compelled to divorce his wife, if the court has refused, then we could go in to do all sorts of steps to force him or to compel him. Sorry, I better use that word, to compel him. This is in reference to a marriage of a couple who has long been separate. For example, they've not been living together for over a year, so the Mishnah calls it irretrievably dead. This marriage is dead. Absent any chance of reconciliation, they'll never make up. The rabbinical court has no choice but to impose divorce on both parties. He has to be giving a get, she has to be willing to accept the get, and the court can compel them to do so. Okay? Now, compulsion when referring to an act or ruling of the Beit Din as opposed to coercion. In other words, the Beit Din compels, the Beit Din implores them. Coercion implies force. This requires persuasion. When referring to an extrajudicial force, get me'useh, if it's a get that is forced, then there is an issue of whether it is a kosher get or not. So the Talmud uses the word kofinoto, one forces him, compels him, lehotzi, to issue a get. And he refuses, then says the Talmud, he can be flogged. He's beaten with a belt until he agrees to do so. Later, flogging was no longer practiced, and it was replaced by imprisonment. However, in cases in which the Talmudic language is formulated only as a directive, Yotzi v'yiten ktubah, he issues her payment of her ktubah, meaning he will divorce her and pay her ktubah, the marriage settlement. The Beit Din's ruling is called chiyuv get. They obligate him to give a get, and physical force is not employed. Please note, before we spoke about flogging, beating, now it says it's not employed. So it went out of style. According to Rabbeinu Tam, in such cases, the rabbinic court may employ various other means known collectively as harchakot de Rabbeinu Tam, the distancing of Rabbeinu Tam. In brief, this consists of social distancing measures imposed on an unwilling husband, a fancy word, recalcitrant husband, a husband who is not willing to give a get to his wife. In earlier generations, when a rabbinic court would rule a get would be coerced by Torah law, it was impossible to beat the husband with a whip. It was possible to lash the husband with a whip until he expired, until he dropped dead. But times have changed. Likewise, it was possible to impose excommunication. Excommunications means kicking him out of the community. Banishment. Nobody deals with him. No honors in the synagogue. He doesn't count for a minyan. Whipping is not customary today in a democratic world, and it's worth reevaluating this term of granting a get. An author whose name is HaKohen, not that he's a Kohen, his name is Kohen, he wrote a book called Rescuing the Oppressed, so that's his opinion. He shall divorce her and pay her ktubah when the term compelled is explicit. According to the sources, Yutzi means he'll divorce her. That's equated with compulsion. Therefore, in cases of stipulations such as a husband requiring his wife to vow to abstain from work, from deriving benefit from having relations with him, or from visiting her father's home, he is compelled to divorce her. However, according to Rabbeinu Hananel and many other rulers, a get may be compelled only in cases, including in his claim of Hamedir, who deprives. I think I better stop here because I'm running out of time, to be continued shortly.